Good and bad news on the injury front from training camp for the San Francisco 49ers a day before they go full pads at camp. Ricky Pearsall is back on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Coach Crocky. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Thanks for hanging with us as we get ready for the 2025 NFL season. And, of course, if you are new to Locked On 49ers, please tell a friend. And new and old listeners, subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And I know that a lot of everydayers are not subscribed yet on YouTube. So make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and, of course, anywhere else. And today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right.
And speaking of everyday listeners, I ran into one today at church. And I'm walking into church, and I see a gentleman with his child, and I said, "Oh man, good morning." He said, "Do you podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Locked On 49ers." And I was like, "Oh, thanks for listening." So shout out to the listeners at church as well.
Yes. Faith and the faithful go together there at Sunday Church in Stockton, California. So yeah, love hearing from the
Elk
faithful.
Grove. I go to church in Elk Grove.
You go to church in Elk Grove. Okay.
Midtown Elk
Cool.
Grove. They have a couple different campuses. They got a Sacramento campus. They have an Elk Grove campus.
There you go.
I go to the Elk Grove. So there we go.
Hey, look, we don't discriminate what city you live in when you are a listener to Locked On 49ers. So we appreciate everybody out there. Thanks for listening. And I want to start with some good news because there was some bad injury news from Sunday's practice. It's the last unpadded practice. Pads go on Monday, so we should get some very good reports from practice on Monday. But on Sunday, Ricky Pearsall, as expected, did return to practice for the San Francisco 49ers. And according to Kyle Shanahan, he didn't do a ton, but he did return from the PUP list as expected and kind of slowly eased his way back. Kyle Shanahan, after practice, said he had about 8 snaps, and they just want to make sure that you don't re-injure anything, re-aggravate anything. But it looked like he was in pretty good shape when he was running on the side and going full speed and jumping, going up for the football and doing some side work. And so they wanted to, but being smart, because we've seen a lot of other hamstring injuries we're going to talk about here. So easing his way back into 11 on 11s, 8 snaps before being done, and apparently made a few catches. He had a screen pass, another couple of catches. He had a touchdown catch in the red zone period as well from Brock Purdy. So good work there. And one other note with Ricky Pearsall is he did catch punts. And I think the punt return, kick return, special teams conversation with the new special teams coordinator is not something we've talked about enough. Croc, Pearsall worked in the punt return group alongside rookies Junior Bergen and Jordan Watkins, according to Nick Wagner of ESPN, who was there at practice. So I think that's something we're going to have to look at and watch in preseason as well, because if the rookie 7th round pick, Junior Bergen, doesn't make the team, one of the other wide receivers, one of the other running backs corner, somebody has to do the return work, right? And that could potentially fall on Pearsall. We've seen him do that before, and rookie Jordan Watkins working in with the punt return group as well. So that's something I hadn't really even thought about with Pearsall, and hadn't really heard many reports about what that special teams return groups were looking like. And I think the 49ers would probably hope that the 7th round draft pick, Junior Bergen, is good enough in that role to earn maybe the last wide receiver spot and be the lead return man.
I think it would be very, excuse me. I think it would be very ideal for the 49ers to have Ricky Pearsall back there catching punts, returning. You want someone back there that's sure-handed before anything else. I'd say the more concerning thing is just this is a guy that hasn't been able to be healthy so far, very youthful so far in his career, but a lot of different things just kind of banged up a little bit here and there. And I would assume that just being a punt returner would only add to that. So that's a little worrisome, but if you take away injuries and you say, hey, Ricky Pearsall back there for return, I mean, this is a guy that has, he's a very smooth guy, smooth runner, has some nice twitch to him. We saw Trent Taylor back there several years ago, a guy that was top 10 in return yards, average per return, averaging around 10 yards per return or whatnot, but was very sure-handed back there. That's what you're looking for, first and foremost.
Only a couple of 49ers were not actually at practice on Sunday, and that was Jacob Cowing and cornerback Renardo Green, who was newer to the injury report. And apparently there was a hamstring injury for Renardo Green. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but Kyle Shanahan did say that Jacob Cowing, who injured his hamstring in, I think it was the first day of practice before they just on air routes, Jacob Cowing hurt his hamstring. Now Renardo Green joins him. Both minor hamstring injuries. The aim is to have them back Raiders week, according to Kyle Shanahan, which would be the preseason game of August 16th. So that is the timeline now for the hamstrings of Jacob Cowing and Renardo Green. The 49ers added Eli Apple. I'm going to talk more about that, but I want to stick on the wide receiver group because probably the one wide receiver you can't afford to lose right now is Jauan Jennings. And Jauan Jennings left practice about midway through with what Kyle Shanahan called a calf injury. There's no timetable yet on Jauan Jennings' return. Kyle Shanahan did say that it could be a similar situation to what Jennings dealt with in the spring, which I didn't even realize he was dealing with something in the spring as well with a calf injury. So that's not good if it's something that was in the spring that is still bothering Jauan Jennings, and he's going to have to start the season as your number one wide receiver. And so you got to have him out there. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's shut down almost completely through the preseason until you get ready to practice for week one against the Seattle Seahawks, because he's somebody you have to have out there. And I think of all the guys that you have out there practicing, he's probably the guy that needs the least amount of reps because he is the old head veteran right now as far as being an actual San Francisco 49ers wide receiver.
LKV in the chat says soft tissue injuries are bad. And, we've talked a lot about those. I think for me, the biggest indicator of those happening, and I could be completely wrong, maybe it could be some of their training, but I think a lot of times, man, coming in out of shape a little bit. And even if this is something going back to, them during the spring, you're getting out there in the spring and all of a sudden you're kind of exerting a certain level of energy and you're running routes hard and all that. And a little calf thing bothering me a little bit. I could see that happening because, yes, that is the ramp up stage, but, it's just making sure that you don't go into the ramp up stage without ramping up at all prior to it. So I don't know how that happened with him, and we're seeing some of the other issues. Maybe it isn't conditioning. Maybe it's just a freak incident. But I just think we see these a lot early in camp. Like, how many of these issues do you see really pop up during the season and really continue to nag guys? I'd say they come into the season and you may hear a little something here and there, but for the most part, I think a lot of times training camp, not quite in shape, ramping up a little bit too much, have a soft tissue injury. I think we see it every year. And you just hope that doesn't affect them entering the season, especially for guys who are continuing to build a rapport with the starting quarterback.
I'm fighting my blinds over here, my curtains, because I like to get a little natural light when I'm podcasting, but I got one window here behind my system, and if it's a certain time of day, it blasts through there, and it'll find the tiniest little crack. It's like I gotta fix the blinds and the curtains back there, make sure everything's set, so I don't get blinded by the sun as we do this podcast talking about the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I've been asked a lot, Croc, about the soft tissue injuries, and I think every team's fans thinks that they're the only team that happens to them. I think it just happens around the NFL, and there's not a lot you can do about it. That's where I come from with it. Like, do you think there's something the 49ers are doing differently than every other team in the NFL?
Nah, man. I mean, these trainers, they get paid a ton of money. I think they are very well educated, but you can't. There's, I mean, 90 guys on the roster right now. How can you micromanage every single guy and make sure every guy is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing? Warming up a certain way even before you get on the field, right? Like, if you guys go to a practice, I know 49ers have practices going on right now. you'll see some guys go out there early and you see them doing some band work. A lot of times those guys are less likely to have some of these issues that some guys do, as opposed to a guy that just runs on the field and then warms up with the team. I always tell my guys, if you do what everybody else does, you're probably not doing enough. Like you got to do a little bit extra. I think rolling out, using a foam roller before practice, before hitting the weights, I think all those things go into really, getting your body to where it needs to be to prepare for an activity.
Yeah, if you're not sure, call Christian McCaffrey or call Fred Warner or call Nick Bosa and make sure you're doing it right, because those guys are doing everything they need to do, and they can't even completely escape the injury bug as well. So I think it's just the nature of how things are. And at least the 49ers aren't dealing with anything that the Raiders are dealing with Christian Wilkins and him not rehabbing properly according to the team, and they're trying to go after his guaranteed money. That's a situation I haven't seen maybe ever in the NFL. Is that unprecedented, Croc? People going after their guaranteed dollars like Pete Carroll and the Raiders are doing right now because he wasn't rehabbing to their liking?
They're going to try to get their money back however they can.
Raiders going to Raider.
Yeah.
Next.
Did you see the thing with Christian Wilkins?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Christian Wilkins. They're
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you say that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not only did they cut him, but they're also trying to take his guaranteed money back. And I've never heard about guaranteed dollars in the NFL. A team and it wasn't like, oh, we're going to try to get it back. It was like, well, it's been voided, so you're not going to get it until you sue us. That's essentially what the Raiders are saying.
I've heard of guys retiring and the team trying to recoup some of the money. Mike Vick, I think in his situation, they wanted to recoup some of the money, and that might have been like, signing bonus money, or when he had his situation with the dogs and all that. But you cutting a player and then saying we want money back, I don't know. That's a little weird. But they said that he was being weird. Right. And we've seen some things from Christian Wilkins. You guys go back some years to when he was in college and all that. It was very weird, but then he was so good, especially once he got to the NFL, you kind of just look past it. But to see, I think it was John Feliciano that tweeted, like, he was doing some really weird stuff.
Well, that's why when you think that teams are being a little too much when they're talking about red flags and stuff for players pre-draft, you know why? Because they're talking about millions of dollars at stake, and they don't want to draft a guy who's not going to put in the work, who's not going to be, a professional for them. So this is a multi-million, billion, in some cases, dollar business. Let's talk about the Eli Apple signing, Renardo Green injury, and a really scary moment from Sunday at 49ers practice next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat. Get your draft boards ready. There's nothing I love more than a good fantasy draft. To be honest with you, I wish you could just draft and not manage the team throughout the season sometimes, because I love the drafts. I love getting my draft board ready. But then, when it comes to that group chat and the trash that is talked, that'll get you fired up in October, November to manage your football roster, because you want to get into the playoffs and you want to have bragging rights all off season long. And it's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. And of course, I'm playing Yahoo Fantasy this year again, like I've done every single year. So whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league, you got to go to Yahoo Fantasy. Such a smooth, and it's just they've been doing the fantasy thing the best for a very long time. And to celebrate now 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. So stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. So a scary moment on the field at practice on Sunday, Croc, and a young player by the name, and look, this isn't a guy that I've done a lot of scouting of or know a lot about as a football player, and I can't give you his strengths and weaknesses as a football player. He's a guy that's chasing his football dream and trying to make the San Francisco 49ers football team in training camp. But Terron Jackson, it was, according to Nick Wagner, it was obviously the final non-padded practice, and there was a 7-minute stoppage on the field toward the middle to the end of practice for Terron Jackson, who was on the ground for about 6 minutes being tended to by trainers. And he ended up getting carted off the field in an ambulance, and he went to Stanford Hospital for further evaluations. Kyle Shanahan said that he was talking and moving all his extremities, so that's really good news. But still, we heard from some players after practice, and Diamador Lenore and Christian McCaffrey, and it's like, it's obviously something that shakes you up when you're a player. And Christian McCaffrey talked about how, nothing's for granted in this league and in this game, and it's a brutal game, and the next day could be the last time you ever get a chance to play, and it's kind of a reminder. But Kyle Shanahan asked the team, everybody cool to go back to practice after something like that? You see a player get carted off, you're like, my gosh. So we don't know the specifics yet of that injury for Terron Jackson. Obviously, hoping the best for him. And the 49ers did go back to practice, but that's tough, Croc. How do you put something like that out of your mind on the football field?
Man, no, that's extremely tough, and I don't know. I mean, I was scared just being there and seeing a guy tear his ACL. Like, oh man, like, am I gonna plant wrong or cut wrong and tear mine? You have to get that out of your head and continue to play. But I can only imagine seeing a guy down for several minutes and then be like, all right, well, here we go, back to locking in. All right, we got cover 4. Like, all right, read it to the what? Like, that would be extremely difficult for me. But these guys, they have to be professionals, man. Football players, they go through so many different things on and off the field. I mean, sports in general, you have a lot going on, and it's always scary when you see an incident like that. I could think of, like, was it Paul George in basketball, where he like went into the bottom of the basketball hoop and then his leg just snapped. And if I'm a basketball player, like, dude, I don't ever want to jump again. Scared, worried I land and my leg ends up snapping in half like that. So I think injuries, man, is always scary. But somehow these guys, man, they figure out a way to put it behind them and continue to perform at a high level.
So obviously, yeah, once again, we're thinking about Terron Jackson, and hopefully he comes back healthy and it's not as serious as it sounded, and he's able to chase that football dream. Renardo Green, cornerback Renardo Green. This is not a great one, Croc. The 49ers have some questions as far as depth, and a lot has to shake out with the 49ers at cornerback on the roster behind the two, apparent start, like the two clear starters on the outside at cornerback is Renardo Green and Diamador Lenore. And now one of those guys, Renardo Green, has a hamstring injury. He's going to be out a couple of weeks. And he's somebody that, as good as he was as a rookie, you're never out of the woods. And I always talk about how the developmental path is not linear in the NFL. You have, slumps and you get a little better. And it's not always like, oh, good, I started out good, I'm gonna keep getting better, keep getting better until I'm great at the end of my career. Then I'll get a little older, then I'll get a little worse. It doesn't happen like that in the NFL. And so you wanted to see Renardo Green not only be as good as he was last year, but maybe even get a little bit better this year. And so you never want to see guys that are young players and really key developmental, month of the season for them to miss it. So hopefully, according to Kyle, Kyle Shanahan is correct. And according to Kyle, again, if you missed it earlier, Jacob Cowing and Renardo Green now with the hamstring injuries are probably going to be out till around that August 16th Raiders week. Kyle Shanahan called it the preseason game against the Raiders on August 16th. And so some very interesting depth, I think, battles, right? Behind Renardo Green for who might be up and who's going to be playing those preseason games when Renardo Green's not out there.
Yeah, now 49ers, especially at cornerback, you can get thin really quick. I mean, there's a shortage, almost like an offensive line, right? Every year, everybody wants all these great offensive linemen on your team. By the way, Simmons looking like he's doing well in Kansas City's camp. I mean, not to say it's not ideal, but it just hurts because I was the one that was like, I think you kind of got to draft him no matter what and just hope and pray that it works out. But now it seems like did they get a stud left tackle or tackle in general at pick 32 or 31?
I think Josh Simmons was our number 4 player on our combined draft board, right, Croc? Before the draft, it was
Travis Hunter was high.
Hunter,
the edge rusher.
It was Hunter and Abdul were 1 and 2, and then I think maybe it was Oh shoot, who was it? Oh, the Jaguars ended up taking at 5. Oh my God, I haven't thought
No, the
about.
Jaguars got Travis Hunter.
I'm sorry, the Browns. The guy, the Brown, with the Jaguars trading up, the Browns ended up taking at 5 the Michigan defensive tackle.
Mason Graham.
Mason Graham, thank you. Mason Graham, I think, was 3, and I think Josh Simmons was 4 on our board, right ahead of Will Campbell, and then Michael Williams ended up being up there as well with some other guys. And I think so. I think number 4 overall, based on tape and what taking injury out of it, what we thought Josh Simmons could be, and the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of round 1 might have got a top 5 player if he's healthy.
Yeah. It was scary. I don't even remember what I was talking about. That kind of just threw me all off.
I know that's
I don't know what. I know. Shortage of offensive line talent in NFL, and you're always trying to continue to get better. It's the same for the defensive back position. Like you're always looking for ways to really add talent, and it's kind of tough, right? Like you can never throw enough resources at the cornerback position, but the 49ers felt, I'm assuming, comfortable with, okay, we got Diamador Lenore, we got Green. Awesome. Nickel, if we can get this Upton Stout kid, and they signed a couple veterans. Man, you start having a guy or so go down, or a guy like Renardo Green, who is supposed to be your starting cornerback, you can get thin really quick at that position. So hopefully it's something where he does come back fairly soon. But it's a little scary. You start having some of these injuries, especially this early in the training camp. You ain't even put the pads on yet.
I've seen the chat. Someone said Terron Armstead. Did I say Terron Armstead? I knew I was going to do that. Terron Jackson was the player that got injured for the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday.
There was a guy working out that looked like me, because a lot of times after the training camp practice, they'll have some guys, and I will talk about who they did sign. But there was one guy who they did not sign, and it looked like me, and everybody was tagging me. They're like, "Oh, I see you, Croc, doing the back pedals. Is this bald-headed guy out there?" I'm like, damn, that kind of does look like me. That's weird.
Dude, that's phenomenal stuff. I got to see. Somebody send me a photo of whoever that was that looked like Croc warming up or trying out for the San Francisco 49ers. At BD Peacock is where you can send that one on Twitter. Next, Eli Apple, the 49ers' newest signee, a veteran corner. They need numbers there. Eli Apple, and we'll get into the chat as well. What do you guys want to talk about here in the final segment? Breaking down the San Francisco 49ers at training camp next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. And we've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale. Maybe you're waiting to go see a playoff game or some tickets that just go on sale for the new season for the San Francisco 49ers, only to lose your spot. And it's something you've wanted to, maybe a band you've been dying to see. You've been wanting to see this concert. You've been wanting to go to a game. It's a hot ticket, and it should always be about making memories. It should never be about dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets, NFL tickets, baseball tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to the game starting, and you can save up to 60% on killer last minute deals, even on some really high profile games that are in demand seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Eli Apple been around a little bit. Most recently, I believe, with the Miami Dolphins. Is a longtime New York Giant. He was a first-round pick out of Ohio State. Eli Apple is the player that the San Francisco 49ers have signed to take some snaps now and compete with Renardo Green's latest injury. When's the last time you remember laying eyes on Eli Apple in the NFL, Croc? Do you have a scouting report there? I know he was long and fast coming out of college, kind of an up and down career. Times he looked great, times he didn't look as great.
Last time I ever really paid attention to him was probably the Super Bowl against the Rams, playing for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Forgot about the Bengals era.
Yeah, the signing of a guy like him, especially at this time, I don't put a whole lot of stock into it. This is a guy that, almost like the receiver, St. Brown. You get a guy in that's a veteran. It's not going to take a whole lot to learn like a system or a scheme or how team wants to kind of do something, because especially in training camp, you keep it fairly simple, just getting down the basics of what it is that you're trying to do. And you're hoping that that guy can make it through camp. Now, for him, the best thing is there a chance I could work my way to practice squad? And if I can work my way to practice squad, potentially if somebody goes down, can I fill in for him? But aside from that, I don't look at it like, oh, the 49ers are trying to sign a starting cornerback, and that's why they went and got Eli Apple. So 49er fans, I wouldn't look into it too much. I would just say, all right, they signed a veteran because the guy went down. They need bodies out there. And I don't want to be disrespectful. McCormick can't body. He's going to try to take full advantage of this opportunity. But I would be surprised if, come the end of August and the 49ers are doing their final roster, it's like, oh, Eli Apple, he's the 6th corner. That would be a little surprising.
He has started and played in NFL games, which is kind of important for the 49ers right now to find a depth piece, because they've got enough guys that are competing for spots. And while Renardo Green was out of practice, Trey Brown and Dallas Flowers were the first guys up on the outside. Trey Brown has been working both outside and inside at 49ers camp. So when Trey Brown is outside, Upton Stout was getting work in the slot. Then Trey Brown would move inside, get work in the slot. Then Dallas Flowers would go get some work at outside cornerback in Renardo Green's spot. So that's sort of the first guys that are up and kind of the competition there, which we had talked about was kind of Trey Brown versus the rookie and Upton Stout for that third cornerback role. And if someone like Renardo Green is out, well, I think that competition kind of fixes itself, and Trey Brown's going to be the starter. And whether it's in nickel or outside, and then Upton Stout will be the first man up at nickel with Trey Brown on the outside is what it looks like. So if you're kind of penciling in a depth chart right now for the San Francisco 49ers, nothing's set, and I'm sure there's still some competitions going on. That's what it looks like right now. And interesting that it was Trey Brown and Dallas Flowers, and it might be a left-right corner thing. Is it a field boundary thing with Darrell Luter not being one of the first couple of names up?
Man, Luda got to take advantage of this opportunity, man. And we've talked a lot about that. This is a guy that a lot of us had, kind of, I don't want to say high expectations when you're a 5th round pick. But watching this film, he went to South Alabama. It's like, all right, this is a guy that I think he could play some football for the Niners, and it just hasn't been healthy enough to really showcase that. So right now, if you start getting skipped over for reps, I'm curious to see where does Eli Apple come in. Last year, the 49ers signed Isaac Udom and Rugiet Sin. And you weren't sure, okay, what are their role going to be? Well, those were guys that they were the next man up all the time. If a defensive back went down, those guys were coming in. Matter of fact, Isaac Udom, I want to say, started some games early with guys kind of being out or banged up or whatever due to injury. He was really the next man up. Then Rugiet Sin got a lot of reps as well. Darrell Luter has to figure out how to work around those type of guys, the Trey Browns and so on.
A few more notes. I mean, unfortunately, most of this podcast is been about injuries, who's out, who's in. Good news on Ben Bartch. He's getting pretty close, and it looks like he might be back very soon. And still in his place, it's been Nick Zakel has been working out at left guard because Spencer Burford continues to get the first looks at swing tackle, stepping in for Trent Williams. Trent Williams had the day off, so it was all Spencer Burford at left tackle with the ones on Sunday. Ben Bartch looking very close to returning from his quad injury, according to Nick Wagner of ESPN, that landed him on the NFI list to open camp. A few more injury notes. Linebacker Curtis Robinson coming back from an ACL, and Andre Dillard, who we really haven't seen do anything yet as a member of the San Francisco 49ers. He was signed post-draft. He's been injured, and he was getting some work on the side field with Curtis Robinson there. So that's kind of the end of the injury portion, which has been the entire portion of this podcast today. I look forward to talking about a padded practice tomorrow, Croc.
Yes.
Nick Winkler's been out. You've noticed, I'm sure, Winky Wednesdays the last couple of weeks. We got to save our Jake Moody versus Greg Joseph special teams competition for Wednesday's episode. And that one's for sure heating up. And some other really interesting players in camp that are getting some rave reviews, including both rookie running backs and undrafted rookie cornerback Jacob Robinson. I've seen him mentioned quite a few times from beat writers. So a lot of players to get eyes on during the first padded practice Monday. Croc and I will be back Monday to break down everything from that padded practice. And Croc might actually be there. Not positive if Croc, do we have any confirmation on whether or not you were going to be at that first padded practice yet?
No confirmation yet, but I'm hoping within the next hour.
Okay.
I get that confirmed. Try to take my some of my athletes there and so they can see what it looks like by a professional. Like, how do the pros prepare? What are early outs? I have early outs for my guys, right? 4:00 is early outs. 4:15 practice starts. I can tell them, hey, early outs, that's a time for you to kind of get some work in, that, little things you want to work on. But when they go to the practice, they get to see the professionals do it and work on their feet, work on their steps and all those things. So hopefully we get there and get our kids that kind of experience.
And maybe we can get like a collab with Eric Crocker and the fake Eric Crocker that was working out for the 49ers. Maybe get them there at the same time, get a photo op there. That would be fun.
I have to send you that before we get off air, because when it was the first guy up too. It was the first guy up. I want to say I saw it on Brad Graham. Let me go to his Instagram page. He posted the workout. There's a few defensive back. Obviously, Eli Apple was one of those guys. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't see it right here on this page, but yeah, I saw it. So people were tagging me in it. So maybe I just got to look through my notifications.
I can't wait to see that. I have to put out there on social media. So follow us there at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked on 49ers.